Stream. Good afternoon here from Copenhagen, Denmark, and good afternoon, I think, also from Turkey, Istanbul,
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's
Well,
about 4 o'clock here, man. 4 p.m.
yep, 4 p.m. for you, 3 p.m. for you. For me, we call it 1500 in my part of town. Like, what about Turkey? What are you doing Europe timing
Onalta. Onalta.
on
That'd be
Alta? I don't
16.
even know what.
Onalta.
Yeah, yeah,
16. Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
10,
yep,
10 plus 6.
1600
Onalta. Mm-hmm.
military time.
Yeah, brother.
Anyways, welcome to Bitcoin Treasuries World 45, and welcome to you, Cory Klippsten, CEO and founder of Swan.
I thought you just started this show like 2 weeks ago. How'd you pack in 45 episodes?
I've been busy, man. I've been busy. No, I
That's
did.
awesome.
I guess I did around 75 odd toxic happy hours on YouTube with Puppy, and then started back on YouTube with this focus because I find it extremely exciting back
Yeah.
in September last year. So yeah, we're up to
Okay.
45 now. Yeah.
Nice,
So
man.
what's going on
Well,
with
for
you?
anybody that doesn't know, Anders and I go way, way back because when he lived in Los Angeles, I was looking for search engine optimization and search engine marketing expertise around the launch of Give Bitcoin, the predecessor product for Swan. And so we met up. I was not as known in Bitcoin at the time as I am now, so he was super suspicious and like I think wouldn't join the video call at first. Anyway, I finally got him to meet up with me for coffee. We met at Pepperdine, I think, right?
The place down
And
on 3rd Street, Santa Monica.
was that where we first met up? Okay. I know
Yeah,
what it was. Yeah, the first time I got on video with you, I was actually at the Pepperdine cafeteria randomly, which was
gotcha,
hilarious.
gotcha. Yeah,
I thought it was a restaurant because it was listed on Google Maps as like a normal restaurant, and it turns out they basically just allow people to come into the student cafeteria.
yeah.
Anyway, so we've been friends a long time, and you were super gung ho, and rocking Give Bitcoin t-shirts at conferences, and just like all charged up. So anyway, grateful for the friendship, and love to see you progress and doing new things all the time. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, man. And as you know, and I've told you before, so that's 6 years ago that you reached out, and you're right. I probably was suspicious of anyone asking for any type of details, but then we had the Zoom call, and incredibly grateful for coming in and being early part of Give Bitcoin, which then turned into Swan Bitcoin 6 months later. And yeah, I remember in October 19, I was at that downtown conference in LA with you, and we were all wearing like Christmas hats and handing out stuff
Yep.
or whatever.
Man,
And
that was a crew. It was like you, me, Brecky, Stephen Cole, I think was there.
yep,
What's the Andrew
Svetsky was
Myers,
there.
Satoshi Energy, Spetsky was there, Breedlove was there. And I mean, there just weren't that many Bitcoin conferences. That was a crappy, I think it was Crypto Invest Summit, if I recall the name of it. It was
Yeah,
just a horrible conference, but we had a lot of fun taking it over.
yeah, absolutely. And I had heard about social investing and figured like I would do well at that. And then, thanks for you having me part of Get Bitcoin and me being there, handing out stuff in a Christmas hat or whatever you call it. And then eToro had a promotion there. You go, you choose a ball, you put it in, and then you get like,
Mhm.
either $100 or $250 worth of promotional credit. And that's how I started my eToro Popular Investor account, like just randomly, and
Oh, I didn't
today,
know it was right. It was there. That's
yeah,
crazy. And you
that's
basically outperform everybody by telling people to go 1x long Bitcoin.
basically, so there's sadly they have stopped the financial incentive to be copied last year. I'm sure it's U.S. regulations just destroying any type of a lot of types of initiatives. Um, but yeah, I created 100% Bitcoin HODL portfolio and outperform all the shitcoin trading. And today, most best performing popular investor on eToro US, most copied therefore also, and by far most followed. I have more than 600,000 followers, like from across the, globally on the eToro. But anyways, enough about me. Swan, what a journey, starting with Give Bitcoin, and then why turn into Swan?
Yeah, man, it's wild. I think, we had an early thesis that there would be a lot of different products and services that would spring up around Bitcoin, and that some of them were kind of obvious out of the gate and even offered in different ways back in 2019, 2020. Obviously, brokerage. And, I think Pierre Rochard in like summer of 19 had been wanting to start kind of a savings platform. So we kind of had the same idea at about the same time, and he decided to do something else and basically gave me his slides. So that was kind of, fed into the savings plans that we launched Swan with. But you knew at some point you'd have asset-backed loans. You obviously had a bunch of crypto platforms, including one you used to work for, doing Bitcoin and IRAs alongside like shitcoins and IRAs too. So you knew that was something that you could add to the platform. But the real insight was basically how do you build distribution, and how do you do distribution in a way that's cost effective when you don't have the trading fees from hundreds of altcoins. Because it's actually very easy to get people onto your platform as a crypto exchange. You can even pay them a few $100 and seed their account, because you're just going to get people gambling, and you're going to put, the latest dog or cat coin in front of them, and you're going to get them to churn their account 50 times a month and clock all those fees. And that's a proven model. But if you're going to take a long-term view on Bitcoin as an asset and actually build something like, like a Fidelity for Bitcoin or something like that, you're going to need to have distribution. And so that was really, my thesis was content-led acquisition. And so basically going really hard at research, going hard at media, et cetera, and building your own audience so that you could launch product after product after product into the waiting arms of people that know you and trust you. And so that's worked out. And I think that's a very good analogy that what Fidelity has done over the last 50 years, building for equities as an asset class, we're doing for Bitcoin. And I'd say just because Bitcoin is so early in being understood as an asset class, the service model is much more like what you see with private client services or private wealth management. And so it's a lot higher touch. And, we have our sales team, and everybody knows, John Haar and Alex Stanzik and Stephen Lubka and Matt Gillette and all these guys. And people like to be served by their Bitcoin guy, and that's who they like to pass around. So that's basically the thesis. And then on the Swan institutional side, obviously we have the ability to build into new areas where you're kind of doing deals and putting a lot of money to work. And, we've got a senior team, including myself, that has a background and, MBAs from Chicago and having worked at Morgan Stanley and McKinsey and stuff like that. And so we can do business at that higher end. We took a first stab at that, obviously, from like 22 to 24 in the mining space. And I can't really talk much more about that than to say that we lost the business. It's in litigation, but feel free to go hunt for info on that. But interestingly, at about the same time, and you spotted this. You said you started this show last September of 24. That was exactly the same time that I think it graduated beyond MicroStrategy and just became obvious that Bitcoin treasury companies are something that can scale beyond just one company. And then there was the rise of Metaplanet throughout the back half of the year in 2024. And I think it's just certain. I personally noticed the tipping point, and this was just for me, but I also know it was for a lot of other people too that I've talked to. Sometimes it's just getting the story right and getting the explanation right. And so for me, our clients were talking a lot about treasuries. Our salespeople like John Har and Steven were talking about treasuries a lot. A lot of our friends like you were talking about them a lot. But it wasn't until right before the election, actually at the Cantor conference down in Florida, where Saylor had his refining capital analogy. And I think that really carried the day. And I really think that was the big unlock for a lot of people on Wall Street, where they finally understood it. And they were like, oh, this is just tranches. This is just like, collateralized mortgage-backed securities or whatever, right? And you've got like a risk or a low risk tranche, and you've got like an equity tranche, and you can slice that up a few different ways. And obviously that's what you're doing now with the capital stack for Strife, Stride, Strike, Stretch, etc. Hold on. wifey calling. I gotta
That's
uh,
totally
let
cool.
me just let me just tell her on a live podcast.
You got it.
Don't
Uh,
call.
Dude, let me just say, if you have to answer, Corey, my friend Luke, which I do believe you know from LA, he says I have the ability to talk about a white wall in 30 minutes. I think that's a little bit rude. I think I can speak to a white wall in tw about a white wall in 24 hours. But so if you have to step away for 1 minute, I'll figure something out. I hear you. I'm joking.
No, no. So we're good. So that really then became, we spent a lot of Q4 figuring out what we wanted to do in treasuries. Joao, my chief strategy officer, is super sharp on this stuff. Has been long time asset management career and was at McKinsey doing fig work for 6 years before coming to Swan.
Who's that again?
It's a lot. Joao, our chief
Joel.
strategy officer. Yeah,
Gotcha.
like Joao Gilberto, but a different last name. So he's our chief strategy officer. I've got a Chicago finance MBA. I've been around this stuff for 25 years at this point, for better or worse. And so we just dug in deep and started talking to everybody, all the True North guys, spent a lot of time with Kotzman and Jeff and Ben. Ben came on and started consulting to us in I think December 1. Just started figuring out like what we want to do in this space. And obviously there was a view toward, what we'll eventually do, which is actually do this with Swan. So we aim to go public and to start stacking for Swan, but it's also, what can we do, given that we already serve over 2,000 businesses for their stacking needs, is there more that we can do to help people think about it through the lens of Bitcoin treasury companies? Because that is how they're coming into Bitcoin now. Anybody new, there's a very good chance that they're either coming in wholly through, sort of their brokerage account and thinking about it in terms of, the MicroStrategy thesis, or they're saying like, okay, if Saylor and Fong and that crew are doing 10 things, are there 3 or 4 that are applicable to me? And like, how can you help? And so that is a big part of how we talk to our clients now. And we found that we are facilitating a bunch of these kind of on the private side, and now we've also dipped into the public side with our partnership with Sequins, the Paris-based company that has gone whole hog into Bitcoin, and over 90% of its equity now is basically the Bitcoin. And so we're doing the strategy and the marketing and the custody, liquidity, security, kind of everything on the Bitcoin side of what that company is doing. It's actually only listed on New York Stock Exchange. Some people think it's listed in Europe as well, but it's actually only listed with American Depository shares on NYSE. And so we're hard at work standing that up, and obviously delivering, for better or worse, a lot of learnings to the market, as it was the flip side of the coin of being the first company to market, because we beat KDLY Nakamoto and the 2 Tether SPACs, or whatever, the Cantor SPAC, CEP and CEPO, to market, to being able to make new Bitcoin purchases, because Sequins was already listed and didn't have to wait for a merger. But all these pipes that have been raised, uh, there are a lot of people that have come into these pipes that are looking at it like a trade. And we found that out very quickly, which I'm sure, some people in the audience will be eager to understand what's going on there. But, if you had a company that was worth like $50 million, and then you raised $380 million and buy Bitcoin with it, you took that money from people, and, they took on the risk, and they actually, gave you the money, and you got to buy Bitcoin with it. But a lot of those people are looking to deploy that capital into something else. Some are long-term hodlers and, say that they're down for the long term. And we see that with them not selling, and you can find out, who's selling and who's not from publicly available info. And so people like Adam Back are not selling and are in it for the long haul. Swan is in it for the long haul. We got compensated. We actually structured our compensation over 99% in common shares, common equity, very deliberately. We were offered other deals, by the way, and decided to structure it that way. And that was my idea, because I'd prefer to ride along with people that are believing in our vision and what we're doing. But yeah, it is something to look at when these pipes unlock and you have MNAVs that are rather astronomical. There are people that are looking at that and saying, well, I'm probably gonna take my winnings there and rotate that into something that has some upside.
Yeah, it's an incredibly interesting game, and a lot of it's so cutting edge that a lot is learned, I think, by the market every month, right? We take new
Yeah.
steps. Convertible bonds used to be, wow, this is great, just last end of last year, right? And now
Huh?
strategy is staying away from it so they can put preferred stocks higher in the capital stack. Um,
My God, I mean, STRC is just like a world beating product.
yeah,
It looks
it's
like. I mean, as far as I can tell, I can't poke a hole in it.
No, I think it is, and I can't wait. I think probably like the rest of the preferreds, they need to have reach a certain trading volume and maybe a period of time. I think it's probably trading volume before they can start ATMing it. I think also for Stretch, it's been like that with the previous three. I can't wait for that to unlock because I think it's gonna be, I think there'll be no more 155 Bitcoin buys once that is in place on a weekly basis. I think it's a bit of a rocket ship there for them potentially.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely agree.
so so many things to talk about here, but sequence that am I saying it right? Am I pronouncing it sequence?
So I've decided to pronounce it the exact same way as the founder and CEO, George Karam, who pronounced it Sequins. So he
Sequence.
pronounces the S. I think if you were being really pedantic about it, the French would pronounce it Sequin and not
Sequence.
pronounce the S, but that's just annoying. And then you have a lot of people having fun with it because like you could very well easily Americanize it and just call it Saquon, and then you have like a mascot, jumping backwards over would-be tacklers and everything. So I think Ben has been pronouncing it Saquon, and I'm pronouncing it Sequans. Oh
Sequence.
wow, my whole family just showed up here. There's my daughters and my wife are gonna
Nice.
try to distract me here at the golf course.
Excellent. Yeah, Cory ain't having
I'm
none of that.
live. I'm live on TV right now. Thanks for coming.
On a
They're not.
on a huge channel with 175 live viewers right now. Um, Joking.
That's
Well,
because
the
we're
number
early. We're early,
we're early.
Anders.
Yeah, we're so early. We're early with everything. Get Bitcoin was early in 19, and here we are talking backs, which I think you at one stage did a poll like what should we call these companies? It's,
Yeah.
and I think you were the one who suggested Bitcoin accumulating companies because BTC Treasuries. There's companies like Mara that are just holding Bitcoin, but they are not actively engaging in using financial tools in increasing it rapidly, which I think is the most important thing to do. So they're not interesting. I want to focus on this subset where they're aggressively accumulating value, basically. And
I
I
honestly
don't know.
don't care where that lands, by the way. And I've been going back and forth with Richard Byworth over at Sis because he wants to call them BTCTCs.
I know. I know.
And
I don't
I
care
think I was
either.
the first. I was the first one to call them something else last fall. I was just talking to so many people on Wall Street, and I wanted to choose something that sounded good to their ear and that actually made sense to them. So I called it leverage Bitcoin equities
Oh, that
because
was
it
you
really
starting that?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started that. I invented that back in, I don't know, November or something. And it was because it's so close to LBOs and they share in the steady state, 5 years from now, I think most of the companies that will turn into LBEs or BTCTCs or BACs or whatever. And so this is the subset of Bitcoin treasury companies. Bitcoin treasury companies, I think, is people that put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, which includes Tesla and Marathon. I think an LBE is a subset of that, which is leveraging capital markets deliberately to accumulate Bitcoin as fast as possible. And so when you look at like btctreasuries.net, maybe there's 60 companies on there, but of the top 50, there's only probably 16 that are actually full on LBEs.
Yeah.
And I've won lots of naming battles in the past, and I've lost some too. I was very against calling savings plans DCA because that's the specific term for trading, and it's basically about
mm,
how to enter or exit a position.
mm,
Not something that you do on an ongoing basis, but once it's in common use, it means something in your vertical, and that's what that means in
yeah,
Bitcoin now. A DCA
it
plan just means
does.
you're always buying, and that's
Yeah.
totally fine. So if it ends up being as long as it's not Bitcoin treasury companies and it's any other thing,
Yeah,
we're fine. Because I just think that's important to make a distinction between, I think all companies will become Bitcoin treasury companies, but there's a subset that are going whole hog trying to access capital markets and
yeah,
basically arb the weighted average cost of capital for public company versus the CAGR of Bitcoin. And that's the key. And their
yeah.
primary KPI. I mean, there's a bunch of different KPIs that you can measure and compare these guys against, but at least maybe it's not KPI, but their goal is to increase Bitcoin per share. And that should be the
Absolutely.
goal.
Those were my words, as it should be, you know.
Oh, and
Um,
so
so
sorry that what I would just wanted to make the point in the connection and why I used LBEs for a Wall Street audience, and I don't care if it ends up being adopted for a retail audience, is because at a steady state, it won't be these sort of SPACs and RTOs into dead shells and stuff like that. I think the best candidates for the bulk of companies that will become LBEs, they share the same characteristics as private equity takeover targets, as LBO targets, which is good cash flow, unloved by the market, so they have a low multiple. So they're tossing off cash that could be Bitcoin. The market doesn't trust them to reinvest the money into the business, and so you become a Bitcoin treasury instead. And I think that flow, that number of companies doing that, is probably about right as well. So if today there's 30 to 40 companies that get taken private off of NYSE and Nasdaq each year, I think that's probably about what we'll see. That there's actually like a good flow of like 30 plus companies a year turning
mhm,
into LBEs or BTCTCs or BACs or whatever that
yeah,
have those characteristics. I think it's
yeah.
only this gold rush stage where there's kind of, there's a theme and there's a bit of a gold rush or a treasury company rush or whatever, that you're seeing all these kind of like empty companies that say they're going to have a business later. Um, and they'll have to, by the way, both for index inclusion and to have essentially uh, non-dilutive Bitcoin purchases. There are very attractive reasons to have an operating business that tosses off cash flow attached to one of these, and I think that a lot of them will. The index inclusion thing is something that a lot of people don't realize, but you can't just be a shell holding Bitcoin and raising money for Bitcoin and actually be included in most of these indices and get the passive flows into your equity.
Oh, so
So it's very important that MicroStrategy actually has an operating business. Otherwise, they can't be in a bunch of these indices.
so that is a demand from many of these indices that you need to have an operating business.
Yep,
Okay, I didn't
exactly.
know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So with the
So
rise
that's
of
one of the
Met,
reasons that you see all these people saying that they're going to get into financial services someday.
yeah, because they have to,
So they
right?
say, yeah, they have to say that they're planning to someday.
Hmm. Got you. So, the rise of Meta Planet and them really killing it and having a much faster or higher BTC yield than strategy and really catching the attention of US investors only from the beginning of May this year. Like things move fast. Um, and them not doing convertible bonds, it felt like we had to take a step back from calling them leverage Bitcoin equities because Metaplanet has very little debt. However, they have announced that they're going to launch preferred stocks as well, which is a perpetual,
Mhm.
forever debt. So I guess maybe
Mhm.
we can start using that term again because debt will be there, but it's another instrument than convertible bonds. It'll be preferred fixed income
Yeah,
stock.
I mean, Metaplanet's a little bit of a different animal just because there's an egregious tax on spot Bitcoin outside of retirement accounts in Japan. So it's been different. But at the end of the day, there is no advantage to Bitcoin treasury companies unless they're taking on leverage. Like these like so it's inherent in the model if you're going to exist long term. Like that is the advantage that a company has over an individual. Otherwise, it's really just a greater fool theory, which is, basically, can you expand the MNAV forever? And no, you really can't. And so you do want to be able to take on leverage, which is why MicroStrategy is doing that. And that's why it's the plan of every single US company that's on the accumulation path is planning to issue preferreds and to
Yeah,
lever up. I mean,
yeah.
obviously that's what we're doing with Sequins for sure. Obviously, we included leverage at the beginning. We'll issue a lot of equity to get our leverage ratios back in line over the coming months, and then we'll look. Basically, once there's over $1 billion of Bitcoin NAV, on the Sequins balance sheet, then we'll start issuing preferreds.
So, so when will that be possible to issue preferreds? Because that seems to be the right now that's the golden goose and the major
Yep.
unlock of capital.
So all the usual caveats, not financial advice, and and I'm a paid promoter of Sequins, et cetera, et cetera. But I think our plan is to be able to get into preferreds in the first half of next year, maybe by
Nice.
Q1.
Okay. Wow.
We're
Nice.
actually, I mean, we got to get the plan approved by the board in the next couple of days. I've got a meeting on that actually right after this, but we're hoping to be able to like publish our slides and our targets and all that stuff this week.
Oh, nice. What's the MNAV right now of Sequans?
It's under 1 today as we speak.
Under 1.
hmm
Are are you not, well, not you, but is Sequans not planning to sell Bitcoin and buy stock? It would be accretive for shareholders. Would that not be the right thing to
No,
do?
I don't think it's wise. I think you want to not set that precedent. I think the market will hammer you way more for doing that than whatever little benefit you would get for the little window when you are like under
Right.
that MNAV. I mean, all that's happening right now is there's a couple of pipe investors that bought a big chunk of the pipe that are looking to go on to the next trade. And so
Mm,
basically every time it gets, up a little bit, they just sell another big chunk. So it's
right.
stuck until they're completely washed out.
Right.
But there's so much upside here, and like obviously it's not going to trade much below its Bitcoin value.
I mean, if it was me, and granted it's not, and there's a reason it's not, obviously, right? I'm sitting here podcasting about it. But I don't care about, for me, it would always seek truth and what's best first, and then, walking along narratives that, that I created second. And if it is best for shareholders to like, all right, we're going to sell Bitcoin and buy the stock back at 10% discount compared to the value in it, I would absolutely go for it. But again, there's a reason that I'm not part of the decision making there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it'll be really interesting. I mean, you look at like Naka is at a 10.3 MNAV right now,
How
and their pipe
much?
is going to unlock 10.3, and their
Wow.
pipe is going to unlock. So there's a bunch of people sitting on like 10x gains, and like, where's the floor when that unlocks?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Is Naka able to do ATM like sell common stock right now to use this MNAV to accrete more Bitcoin?
I think not anytime soon because you've got to close the merger and then you have to apply for the ATM. And I don't know when their shares unlock. I've heard later this month for the shares to unlock, but it could be later. It might be further out. So I think, if you were looking at what happened with Sequans, I think what you would want to do if you're Nakamoto or Pomps back is try to figure out how to get new demand coming in before the shares unlock. But how do you sell that above where basically the entry prices of these guys that are going to unlock anyway? It's a lot of game theory in that. It's definitely complicated. I think there's a lot of people just kind of on the sidelines waiting to see, kind of what happens after the shares unlock before they kind of load up their bags for the next couple of years or something like that.
Right.
I do think the dominant launch strategy for sure is to launch with a big pile of Bitcoin,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
have somebody that is not planning to sell anytime soon
Right.
and wants to see the strategy over a couple of years. So like,
Yeah.
that's I think, certainly learnings from the market over the past few months is that I think Naka was the first one to do the deal where it's like all in a pipe that all unlocks on the first day. And so that was the deal that bankers and investors actually inspected. And so that's what they expected because they kind of set the market with that deal. And so the next few deals, Pomp's deal and the Sequence deal, that priced this over the summer all had the same terms. And I think it's a broken deal structure kind of from the beginning. It's probably not the best way to launch one of these. I think they should have more like 90-day lockups with vesting or 180-day lockups with vesting or something like that. And so we'll see where the market is this fall, but I think you definitely need to find a larger set of investors that are in it for the long haul
Mm,
for a cleaner launch for these. And I think that was probably the big lesson from being, involved in the very first of these to actually unlock.
yeah. Well, there you go. With the MNAV currently being below one, how is Sequans even going to accrete Bitcoin per share until the preferred's unlocked? Did I miss something in what you said, or
Oh no, it's just when the when the pipe sellers are done selling,
okay?
there's no one selling. So I think we'll have plenty of room, and the MNAV will start. I mean, my guess
Yeah,
is the MNAV
start
will
growing.
start to creep up, and then you'll be able to an ATM, and we've already filed for the ATM. So
Okay.
um, so that'll be when the market will bear it. You'll start to sell equity, and just get people to understand what the plan is here, and that this is a long-term play, and the company's fully bought in.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be exciting.
No, absolutely. Looking forward to follow that on the sideline. And below one is an incredible value buy for sure. And then it's up to the investor to say, well, I want to currently sit in something that is moving right now, or I'm just going to buy this because there's no risk, which it's very close to, incredibly low risk apart from custodial risk, which should be low. Also, Cory. So what I noticed a couple of months ago, and I remember sharing it with you. And by the way, you have until 5 p.m. in Turkey, right? Is that your back end? We got another 20 minutes or so, or
Yep.
you have your
Yep.
yeah. Okay, another 20 minutes or so. Actually 21 of all. It's 21 minutes. I noticed a couple of months ago, and also I think told you that, well, currently in US, there is not a and that's where the most Bitcoin accumulating companies are. There's not a single hot engine running, very accretive back operating. Like we see it in Japan, England, Sweden, France, but US is dead a little bit right now. Well, hopefully that changes. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're off and running. It's just it won't be. The other thing is they're all rather large here.
Yeah,
So there aren't any that kind of started with like 30 Bitcoins and are, pumping social media stories about getting to 100 Bitcoins and then 200 Bitcoins. It's like,
I
Sequan
know.
started out, Sequan's initial buy was a lot more than, Capital B has all time, and I don't know what like a Smarter Web or an H100 or some of these kind of small ones are up to, but, I think something like Sequans has way more than that. And Naka is going to smash by like 760 million at whatever the price is there, so they're going to get 6,000 coins right out of the gate.
That's happening
um
today, I think. It's
Today or
supposed to
tomorrow.
happen today. Yeah, okay.
Good, love it. And then there is, I can't remember exactly how the first Canner SPAC structured. I know it has a lot of Tether coins. I think SoftBank may have somehow actually like bought or optioned or futured the coins in some way, so they may actually have already made that purchase and locked them in at the current price, a couple of months ago. Um, but they won't be buying new coins and like raising capital until that SPAC closes, which I think is late Q4 or something.
Yeah.
um, I'm not up on the timing of Pomp and Jeff's thing. I forget what that one's called, but I don't know when they're able to actually start buying Bitcoin. It has to de-SPAC, I guess, in a couple of months or something.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, otherwise, I mean, is there? Oh, I think the one that uh, the one that launched just with a big pile of Bitcoins right out of the gate and doesn't have to wait for anything, I don't think, is Empery.
Empery?
Yeah, so this was Volcon, so it's like an e-bike manufacturer that lost $100 million the last couple of years on like $7 million of revenue. But they're friends with Ryan Matthew Lane, who's new to me, but he's been posting a little bit on X. I think he just joined. Seems like he's a Greenwich-based money manager. I think he might be friends with the Winklevi because he's been kind of
Mm.
talking about Gemini being involved. It might, I have total speculation here, but like it kind of would make sense if it was actually some Winklevoss coins potentially,
Hmm. Yeah.
because they started with I think 3,800 Bitcoins in the first couple of weeks.
Right.
I'm in touch with Ryan. I'm gonna get to know him sometime soon, hopefully, see what they're up to. But I mean that
All
one,
right.
off like a rocket with almost 4,000 coins.
Yep. Okay. Um, cool. Well, I do hope that Sequans, once the initial investors are out to the extent they want to be out, can get it up and running. That would be awesome for them and for Swan. And I'm happy
For sure.
for for Swan to be successful, as you know. Um, Also, what about well, so let me start with
Oh,
this.
and
I
so
remember,
so
yeah,
I should mention, so we are actively talking to like 6 or 7 other of these, Bitcoin treasury companies. Some of them are actually going to be more like, Bitcoin accumulation companies. But we have an exclusive on strategy and marketing with just Sequans, but we're still doing all the other things that we do for businesses. So, custody, security, liquidity. We can even help with staffing and help people network into like the right new board member or the Bitcoin strategy exec. And obviously we own Bitcoiner jobs, so we have kind
yeah,
of an advantage being able to get dozens of resumes in an afternoon. So we're looking at doing that for a few other companies around the world as
okay.
well.
So you'll be able to sell them that service, but not actually tell them how to crank the engine, basically.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right,
that's an exclusive with just Sequans.
right. Interesting. I remember when we met a couple of months back, and we spoke about you hiring Ben Workman, and I told you, Cory, that's the GOAT. That's awesome. Congratulations. And you agreed with me. Obviously, that's why you hired him.
Yeah.
Good job on that, man.
I mean, Ben's great. And, I hope to be working with him in various configurations for the rest of my career. But that's
Yeah,
really true of so many of us, regardless of where we're configured at different companies at certain times. Like, I still talk to Steven Lubka pretty much every day, even though he's, left running Swan Private and is, I don't, what is he, VP of IR, I think, at Nakamoto,
mm,
Vice President of Investor Relations.
yep.
I mean, it's just the homies at this point. And, I talk to Jeff and Tim from True North regularly, and I, trade notes with Jeff Park, and like it's a bunch of good people, and like obviously there's also the OG non-treasury Bitcoin financial services people, and you keep up with them too. So I think a lot of us are going to be doing this for the rest of our careers, and the current configuration of where people are adding value today, so much of this is hive mind, and so much of it happens in public, sharing your analyses and your spreadsheets on X and hopping on different shows and talking it out. And then so many back channels, whether it's a Signal group or a Telegram group or a text message chat or just hopping on Zooms with each other, like we're all figuring this out together and going to conferences and trying to add value there too. So I just don't yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of really good talent out there, and I think there's a new wave of talent that will be coming in that are not known Bitcoiners at all, that are just finance geniuses,
Yeah,
junior bankers and mid-level bankers that have a lot of knowledge on finance generally that they can bring to bear,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they may not be out there in the media all the time. I think Joao is a good example. Like if he were public and doing podcasts, it would be very clear that he's, probably a top 1% analyst when it comes to Bitcoin treasury things, but
right,
he's just ours,
right.
and
Yeah, yeah.
I get to consult with him personally. So,
Awesome.
I think, John Haar is a good example of that as well. Like he's mostly
Love
busy.
John Har. I'm a big fan. He knows that. And right now, I lost Corey because I know he is, and he's back. He is back. That is a local Wi-Fi challenge there, but you're back. Awesome. But that put a small interruption. We got about 13 minutes left. So speaking of Swan and you hiring Ben, wouldn't it be a natural and obvious and cool move for Swan to consider something like what Ben is really good at and what you have a firm understanding of running as a Bitcoin accumulating company?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're very open and have been since Q4 that's what we plan to do with Swan as well. So I think, we're working on going public as fast as we can, and hopefully we'll get that done this calendar year. And we want to raise some money alongside that and stack a lot more Bitcoin than we have. We have some, I'd like a lot more. And, basically, I think it's a very unique story. I think that, having an actual reason for the operating company to have a Bitcoin treasury is uniquely Swan, and there's nobody else that can really compete with the level of synergy that we have. I think we skew very high net worth, and we skew very, our 150,000 clients around the world, skew towards stock buyers, and they're heavy into thinking about treasury stocks, and I think are going to be natural long-term hodlers of Swan stock. And I think all of the Bitcoin treasury companies are natural top of funnel, because people basically, they come in through ETFs, or they come in through some MicroStrategy or something like that. And once they get to like 1% or more Bitcoin price exposure in a brokerage account, that's when they start to actually have selective perception for Bitcoin. And they start to, they pick up a Lynn Alden book, or they watch an Anders podcast, or whatever it is, right? And then they're like, oh shit, I actually want to have some real Bitcoin, not just these tickers. And that's where
Yeah.
they find Swan. So it's a great top of funnel for our business. And then there's
Yep.
5 or 6 ways already where we can leverage a big Bitcoin stack to make more money for Swan, because we can get like a 7%, 70% loan to value wholesale line of credit, and then turn around and lend that out to retail. So we have like super low cost of capital, way below what's in the market if we're borrowing against our own Bitcoin and then lending that out for asset-backed loans. We can face our own customers on brokerage and get back, 20, 25 bips or whatever it is we currently pay out to back-end providers and OTC desks and stuff like that. So tighter spreads that we can share with our customers. It's kind of on and on. We, as an example, I mean, you're a marketing guy. Like, again, take that 7%. If we borrowed against some of our Bitcoin, we break even on a new ad acquired user in like 5 to 7 months.
Yep.
Right. So instead of diluting ourselves with more equity funding, we can just borrow a little bit of money, and that's the working capital account now for ad acquired users. So I think just on and on and on, there's really exciting ways for us to be able to leverage having a big balance sheet full of Bitcoin for the core business. And we've turned profitable, considerably so, which is nice. And so this will always be, the cash flows from Swan's core business will be accretive to the Bitcoin strategy indefinitely. So that is the plan.
Yeah, well, hoping for the best there, and hope to see you go public in Q4. That would be awesome as a alumni of Swan to see that
Oh,
happen, and see how successful you get as a Bitcoin accumulating company next year. Would be absolutely awesome. I want to make a short tease, Cory, because like I've done different roles at BDC conferences. The most fun I've ever had on a stage at a BDC conference was at Pacific Bitcoin the very first year, where you unannounced jump up on the stage and started bandering me, and then I banded you back, and then you banded me harder, and I tried to bander harder back, and that was a lot of fun, unannounced. And by the way, Big Sean did an amazing heckle of me. Absolutely, like the whole tent was laughing. So that was a really good time. Where am I going with that? Yeah. So always done like
you
a
were going to
bunch of.
send me a scarf. You were going to send me a scarf because that was in your scarf era.
Well, yeah, that was in my scarf. Now I'm not wearing a scarf. Considering going suit corner, right? Tie on top of a t-shirt. I can do that. But and then at BDC Prague, I've been emceeing the last 3 years. But now, for the first time ever, we have a Bitcoin conference in the Nordic countries. So that's in Helsinki. It is this coming weekend. It's let me just get put it on screen right there. August 15 and 16, and there I'm both moderating a panel for 3 CEOs of BACs, all from Sweden, but also I'm going to do a keynote, and I want to, let me just remove that one again. Also, I am, yeah, so in this keynote where I'm looking at, I don't want to, of course, just to tease you a single slide on how Bitcoin accumulating companies outperform Bitcoin, and my long-term expectations. But putting that together, I kind of noticed that the 4 companies that I personally invested in kind of happens to be the fastest growing in each of these size categories, so to speak. Like 100,000 Strategy being the only company with that many Bitcoin, and then MetaPlanet 10,000 plus SWC and H100. And it seems to be faster growth the smaller you are, and then you mature. Yeah, not sure if there's a specific question in there. I just want to hear like
No, I mean,
your thoughts on it.
how do you account for a bunch of companies that start with more than 1,000 Bitcoins, I guess?
What do you mean how I account for them?
Well, I mean,
What I expect from them?
no, I'm just saying, like, how do you say that somebody is the fastest to 1,000 Bitcoins when, like Sequins or an Empery or a
True,
Naka had,
true,
3,000
true.
plus Bitcoins on day one?
In no time. Well, I mean, the way as an investor looking at these companies, I do want to see what can you perform here and now, like quarter to date BDC yield
Yep.
with some history behind you. Sequence is right out the gate, so it's early
Yep.
to
It's new.
say anything. But all these have existed at least since Q2 this year. So this is that time like just looking at it again, or the clock for ticking this speed of BDC yield is from 1st of July, where they have already existed
Yep.
for some time. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see Sequans going forward, and other big companies, and but also a very big challenge, I think, for the Capital 21 starting out with so many Bitcoin. Will it be possible once the SPAC is finished and fully merged and listed to get the MNAV up that high and crank that ATM yielding engine?
I think we're going to end up having a bunch of continued evolution in how people think about these metrics. And I think essentially these, penny stocks that start from nothing and start stacking, of course, they're going to have big ramp ups. But, essentially, unless you were there betting on them early on, and kind of rode that up when it was kind of low float, and, figured out how to get it into your brokerage account, whatever little market it was trading on, that's not the end game. The end game is, do you like, look, how focused I am on doing things that actually matter to Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. I mean, our motto internally at Swan, which you've heard 1,000 times, is always do what's best for Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. And I'm just not interested in doing things that don't actually matter. And so unless you get to the scale where you are actually sucking in tens of billions of dollars from the fiat system into Bitcoin, you actually don't really matter. You can matter a lot to people that are like trading stocks, and you'll have super fans. And, obviously these little, stock communities look an awful lot like Bitcoin communities on Twitter, the way that they kind of glorify the founders. And like, I'm very aware of that. I'm sure my follower account will spike like fucking crazy if Swan goes
It's
public and
already
has
up
people holding the
there,
stock. Like,
bro.
no, but my point is, like, just be aware, like, what is the end game here, And the end game is to prove that it's not just a one horse race, that there are other companies that can matter, that can get to, 50,000 coins, 100,000 coins, that can, not just be a place to kind of like park coins and, from Tether, which, like, can you actually suck in capital from the fixed income universe and put it to work in Bitcoin? Can you actually suck in a bunch of capital from BlackRock that invests in your equity, and from, Vanguard and all these different money managers, and have them come in? Can you get the Bridgewaters and the Oak Trees, to come in and do big private deals with you on OTC trades, and take big positions in your company, and do big debt deals with you? So, just remember, like, it's just a trade unless you actually hit scale and hit institutional scale and actually start to suck in billions and tens of billions of capital. And that's the goal. That's what I'm in it for. I'm not in it for, just to trade at all, which is why I really don't care what happens in, the next few months with Sequans, and I won't care what happens in the first few months with Swan either. Like, they're both long-term plays, and the goal is to get to scale where you're sucking in tens of billions of dollars worth of capital and playing this arb that will last for at least 15 to 20 years, in my view. which is Bitcoin's CAGR being higher than the weighted average cost of capital for raising capital from markets for, in particular, US-based major indices companies. So companies listed on NYSE and NASDAQ. And that doesn't mean that there won't be arbitrage plays, and that's for other people to figure out. But I'm in the US, and that's what I'm focused on, is that the weighted average cost of capital is probably like 12 to 15%, and Bitcoin's CAGR should be 25 to 30 for the next decade. And I just want to arb the shit out of that for the next 10 years. Across his, basically help that happen. It's the speculative attack. It's what Pierre wrote about back in 2014. This is the best embodiment of the speculative attack that we've seen.
It's beautiful, and no one really saw it coming. And as you said earlier, kind of really only became a realization broadly last year. And I think part of the reason, because earlier today I saw a graph of the price of Bitcoin and the price of strategy shares very much followed each other until last year, where strategy then took off. And that's why people were like, whoa, there's something here that can grow faster than Bitcoin. And that's why the whole, I think, big part of why the industry exploded. We have a little bit of time left, Cory. What about the 4-year cycle, which I claim is intact until now?
I'm gonna go, actually, Anders. I'm gonna actually wrap up because I've got a important call in a couple of minutes. So let me do that. This was super fun. Great to see you.
Likewise.
And I see a question from Casper in the little audience there. Yes, we are going back to serving international. Lots more to come on that very soon, but we should be a couple of months away from being able to open up to international again.
Awesome. And as soon as you know more about or have news on Swan going public, you and Ben, welcome back here anytime. You DM me and we go online.
I love it, man. Dude, have fun up in Helsinki. All right. Talk soon, Anders.
Thanks. Enjoy. Cheers. Bye.